Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we will hear from members of our student empowerment panel on how they plan to open up to teachers about their dyslexia or how they have in the past. I'm Danielle Thompson. I work as a high school teacher. I'm also currently serving as president of the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about IDA and then we'll get started. The International Dyslexia Association is the largest global, oldest organization dedicated to studying dyslexia. And our mission is to raise awareness and understanding of dyslexia, to promote effective intervention strategies, and to empower individuals and those who want to support individuals with dyslexia. So our mission is to create a bright future for all individuals with dyslexia, give them access to the tools and the resources that they need to have richer and more robust lives. We invite you to become a member of IDA if you are not already, and by doing so, you help lend your voice to the larger global movement of working until everyone can read. Many of you here are dyslexic or love someone who is dyslexic or know and want to support someone who is dyslexic. We thank you for coming and we want you to know that you're not alone no matter what hat you're wearing here tonight. I'd like to introduce you to Shelby Park, and she is a former past president of the International Dyslexia Association, board member now, and is serving as our advisor to the Student Empowerment Panel, and she's also the founder of our Student Empowerment Panel. She's the reason all these students are here and so willing and able to share their journeys. So Shelby, thank you, and could you kick it off for us?
Sure. So I just want to share with everybody, we're sharing our stories. Every student with dyslexia is different. Everybody's story is different. So hopefully we can share some good ideas for you to know, but just remember that not everything has to be the same as somebody else. It can be different. So I'm going to share my screen here. And just give me a second. There we go. So our student empowerment is open to anybody right now. We're meeting monthly by Zoom. We'll resume our meetings in September. It was a little bit on and off this summer, so I apologize for that. Some of the things that we think are super important that you know at the beginning of the school year can be very stressful for students with dyslexia and exciting. You get to see your friends, but the stress of not knowing who your teacher is or bad experiences of the past just can be overwhelming. So these are the things that you need to know before school starts. Do all of your teachers have a copy of your IEP or 504? We just assume sometimes as parents and students that our teachers know that we have one of those. Sometimes they don't. My daughter has sat through class for 3 months without a teacher realizing that she had accommodations or an IEP. So it's really important for every teacher to know, including your art teacher, your PE teacher. It's a language processing disorder, and sometimes that interferes with you listening to directions, and it's really important for those teachers to know. Who's your caseworker? Who's in charge of your IEP or 504 at school? Is it an assigned case manager? Is it a counselor? Are you at a private school? Who's going to be your go-to person? Then you need to know who's the name of the district IEP and 504 coordinator, and that can be a different person sometimes. Sometimes people enforce the IEPs and there's a different person who enforces a 504. And I should explain really quick, an IEP is an individual educational plan, and it's a little bit different. It comes with services. A 504, which many students with dyslexia have, just comes with accommodations. You need a plan. How are you going to introduce yourself to teachers? Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to have a parent do it? It's really important to have a plan before school starts. So really, really important before school. And then your support groups. Who in your area, if you need help with a question, we have the IDA Oregon, Decoding Dyslexia. There's different support groups in different states. For us in Oregon and Southwest Washington, Decoding Dyslexia, IDA, several tutors in the area also have really good information on their websites. So as a student, you really need to know what accommodations are on your 504 IEP. I'll talk to a lot of students and they won't even realize that their accommodations aren't being met because they don't know their accommodations. So it's really important that the student knows and the parent explains the accommodations. What happens a lot of times is parents will go to these meetings by themselves. They'll set up these great accommodations. The student really has no idea, doesn't really know what to ask for because they don't know they have it. Are all your accommodations current? Is there something that you don't need or something you need to add? Your accommodations will be different from elementary to middle school to high school. Some things will stay the same, but some things will be different. Another thing that's really important are your Bookshare or Learning Ally accounts set up and ready to use. These take time. It takes a little bit of work. And if you have a teacher that's not familiar with your Bookshare or Learning Ally, it could be a little bit of work. Do you know what books that are coming up that you're going to need access to for the school year? So those things can be really important for a student to know. Do you need help on trying to figure out what you need in the classroom? On our website, and I think Danielle will put it in the chat, you have access to these little cards, and I'll show you what they look like on the back. It gives you you can just put your name, what you want your teacher to know about you, and it has a little check mark to put the things that you need. So if you really don't know how to introduce yourself and you need help, this is a great source. A good way to have maybe this in your backpack or your planner in case you get a substitute teacher. We'll hear a couple of the students talk about how stressful that can be for them. We have students on our panel that have created cards, little business cards. So they've gone to Vistaprint, and we crack up somewhat proud dyslexic. This student was maybe kind of proud, but still a little shy about speaking. So they've made this great card with their accommodations. And there's a lot of apps and websites where you can make your own business cards. And on the back of this card, the student has put the definition of dyslexia. And it's really important for students to share that they're thankful for the teacher support. I think a lot of times we think of bad things that maybe have happened or a time that a teacher didn't give us accommodation. And we really have to support the teachers that go out of their way to help us make all of these accommodations happen. So now we're going to talk to our experts, our students, and they're going to share the way that they introduce themselves and how they're going to plan for the school year this year. So Lucy, you can unmute.
Hello.
Stop share here so that we can see you. And so Lucy, first of all, you've made this amazing Scarlet Bandit character. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Scarlet Bandit was kind of this thing that it was like a fun way to like, I don't know, like make a superhero based off my struggles, like to look like me and create like this like superhero version of me. And like the superhero version of me does not take away the fact that I'm dyslexic. It harnesses that for like whatever it helps me. And like I'm pretty good with like recognizing patterns and stuff. And I think my dyslexia helps me with that. Where it is a struggle, it's something that's like I've had to go through. And so it helps me like learn how to overcome a lot. It's like kind of this thing where like dyslexia is kind of this thing where it's like you have to learn to get over it, like not to get over it, but you have to learn to adapt to it. And with that, you tend to adapt to other things that you might come across in life. Like maybe I have some skills that I've built off of having anxiety and things like that. It's kind of a like visual representation of like me really harnessing that.
So it's been fun to follow. So can you tell us a little bit, since school's starting for you, how are you going to go about introducing yourself this year?
I'm basically gonna attempt to just flat out tell them like a lot of times most schools I'm currently going into my senior year, and a lot of high schools they have this one day, like a lot of times high schools have like A day, B days, and so there's the first day of school is usually like you have 25-minute classes of every single class that you have, right? And so during that passing period to class, it's kind of my way of being like, hey, just wanted to let you know. And sometimes there's not enough time. Something I found really useful that teachers do, and I don't know if there's any teachers in the audience, but if you don't do this, I completely recommend doing it. There's often these little pieces of paper that teachers sometimes pass out at the beginning of the year, which says like, what's your name? What pronouns do you use? Is there like a name that you would prefer? And like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And then is there anything else you'd like me to know? And that if there is anything else that you'd like me to know is really, really important to not just me, but like a lot of students that I know who have like struggled with like learning disabilities and things like that. It's just something where I can be like, hi, I'm dyslexic. And often those are the teachers who tend to like go up to you and talk to you about that. But it's really important to like talk to that teacher, because they'll oftentimes like think about it, you're in a class of what, 30 people. They need to know that you have something extra that really needs to be like needs help.
And so have you always felt comfortable sharing with your teachers in the past? How has that been?
No. That's kind of this thing that my mom has helped me with a lot, and my parents have. And often there's this meeting, like my mom even now like still helps me with talking to like my IEP counselor. So one thing that happened last year when we were doing online school that I was really struggling with was and so we got on a meeting and with all of my teachers, with my mom, all of my teachers, and my like IEP case manager, and was like, hey, these are the things that aren't working, and these are the things we really need to work on. And like you said earlier, like it's really important that like every teacher knows that you have dyslexia, because love my theater teacher, but he didn't really realize how much that affected me in something in which I have to memorize stuff and then write a script. And so it's like really important for not just your English teacher, your math teacher to know, but also your like PE teachers. I've heard horror stories about that too. Yeah.
So one of the things, how do you deal with your counselor? Like, how have you, like, do you foster that relationship? Do you make sure you know who it is before? Are you pretty comfortable when you have a problem going to that person?
A lot of times I've, like, for example, my freshman year, there's often students are put in like a study skills special ed class. And that's where really, I don't know, like a lot of times they tend to be your case manager, but that's like someone that teacher for that class is more of like kind of a tutor. And that has really helped me like through that. And like, that's kind of how I've really got to know that person, is like having them as a teacher, that like, it's not just like a bond of like a teacher, but they also like just talk to you about everyday things like, oh, what book are you reading? Do you like it? Things like that. It's like, that's how I've really kind of had that relationship. And then reaching out with that is really important, because like I tend to email my IEP counselor a lot, like, hey, my history teacher will not listen to me when I say I can't get this assignment done. Can you help me? Can I like help draft an email with you? Like things like that have been really useful. Is emails. Emails are very important, and a lot of times teachers are pretty good at checking those.
How do you resolve a problem? Let's say your teacher isn't following it, you've emailed. So can you talk people and students kind of the steps that you take?
That's when I tend to get my mom involved. That's kind of the situation where it's like, this teacher like needs, I have to be honest with both my like counselor and my mom, like, hey, this teacher isn't working out. Because a lot of times, like, I know personally, like some students don't want to be like, hey, this teacher isn't listening to anything I say. Students really don't want to do that, but it's really important for them to like acknowledge when a teacher is like not adhering to what you need. And so talking to your parent is a great way to like kind of connect them, because a lot of times the sad fact is schools will definitely listen to your parent a lot more than they're going to listen to you, the student. So really getting your family involved is a great way to kind of build that.
And so we talk a lot about self-advocacy, but one of the parts of self-advocacy is when to know to get help. So part of it is advocating for yourself with the adults around you to make things happen. Is there anything else you want to share with the students about starting school? Words of wisdom?
Just to talk to your teachers. I've noticed sometimes in like we have this thing called Flex, which is like a special help time at the end of the day that you can talk to a teacher and be like, hey, I need some extra help on these problems. And if you have any teachers offering you stuff, like offering to the whole class, like, hey, I'm going to be available during lunchtime if you need some help with this homework, take it. Take everything you need. Even if you're like not entirely sure, it's just great to like walk into that class, tell that teacher how you're doing, even if you don't need help on a specific problem. Just be like, hi, I'm a student, nice to meet you. It's just making sure you really kind of build that bond with the teacher is really important.
And I think teachers appreciate that. They know that you're willing to work hard, especially, and then they don't have to guess. I think it's really important if you can introduce yourself and your teacher already knows what your strengths and weaknesses are, so they don't have to figure it out, because, you know, usually by November for all of us is when it gets really stressful, as things kind of start to slide and the holidays are coming, and it's always a stressful time. But if you're prepared before, you kind of eliminate some of that stress. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask Macy to unmute and talk.
Hi, I'm Macy. I'm going into my senior year of high school, and I was diagnosed with dyslexia in the 4th grade. At the beginning of the year, I like to introduce myself, like I just say every method possible. And that's really kind of how I build a relationship with my teachers at the beginning of the year. So I just got my class schedule yesterday, and I'll start drafting an email to each of my teachers, just telling them, hey, I'm dyslexic. Here's a copy of my IEP, and I'll also give them the name and email of my IEP case worker, just so that if they have any questions, they can ask them or me. And I have a new IEP case manager this year, so I'm also going to email her and inform her of all of my accommodations and just really open that relationship, so that they feel like they can email me and I can email them. Yeah, and then on the first day of school, when I go in, a lot of times, like Lucy said, they have little note cards. How was your summer? What's your favorite color? Is there anything else I should know? That's a great opportunity to just say, hey, I'm dyslexic. Don't know if you got my email, but it has a copy of my IEP. And if they have responded, better yet, just say, hey, you responded to my email. I appreciate that. Because like Shelby said, it's important to show appreciation for the teachers who are going that extra mile. Yeah, and then I also, it's kind of I don't know, a thing I do, which is just scheduling a meeting for about a month out, an IEP meeting with all your teachers so that they can get to know you a little bit over the month. And by the end of the month, you all get together. It's a good opportunity to explain some of your accommodations better, and they have a better gauge of who I am as a learner. And so they can say, hey, in my class, you might want this accommodation. And it's just a good time every year to look over that list and add and subtract whatever need be. Yeah.
You talked about technology. So you were the one that brought up, it is so important to have your technology ready before. You want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, well, before I came on, I asked my mom, I was like, hey, what's something you remember being super important? And she said, just having the technology figured out before the beginning of the year. And maybe that's a part of emailing your teacher, because I have my audiobooks all figured out. And if they can tell me, hey, you're going to need to read these books, it's good to know that. But yeah, if you have a spelling app, any of those things, just knowing how to use that before the first day of school is great.
And how do you resolve conflict? Like when you're not getting your accommodations, tell the steps that you do.
Yeah, well, if I'm not getting the accommodations through just me, I'll first go to my parents and have them send an email. I find a lot of times my emails get lost, my parents' emails don't. And if that's not working, which my teachers have been fairly good, but if that's still not working, then I'll go to my IEP case manager, who's kind of overseeing my education. And that seems to work pretty well.
So when did you start feeling comfortable? So you haven't always been comfortable sharing with all your teachers. So when did you start the self-advocacy part?
I think it was around the 8th grade when I remember really feeling confident enough. But by the 6th grade, I started to kind of ease into it. At that point, I think it was kind of, my mom would send an email, but I would still tell them in person if I could. But it wasn't until the 8th or 9th grade when I finally was like, I can send the email, I can tell them in person, I can schedule the meetings, and kind of took control of that.
Because a lot of our students will share, they'll get things like when the student asks for help and the student didn't ask for help. And that it's a learned process. The students don't automatically know when they need help, right? It took you a while to figure out when things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just gauge the comfort level, because telling a teacher in person, just walking up to them and being like, hey, this is the first time we've ever met, I'm dyslexic, that can be a little intimidating. So if they know beforehand, that's really helpful.
So has there ever been anything that didn't work? So anything like kind of you failed at, like you didn't say something and, just any of your mistakes that people can learn from?
Yeah, I would say I had a tutor one year that did not know I was dyslexic somehow. I just kind of assumed she would know, because the reason I was in there was for dyslexia, but it was like a school tutor, and I kept asking for help, and I was like, you just need to sit with me and work on this. And I brought up that I was dyslexic, and she was like, oh, really? So tell everyone. Tell your tutors, the teachers, everyone, because it's the people you don't expect to not have that information.
Perfect. Thank you, Macy.
Yeah.
So how about Nate? Can we hear from Nate?
Hello,
Hi.
I am a human.
So you talked about, you've just kind of started doing this introduction and taking care of things yourself, right? You've talked about how you're going to introduce yourself to your teachers and things. This is kind of new for you.
Yeah,
And you created a presentation, didn't you,
no.
for your classroom?
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about this. I was like, is it supposed to? Yes,
So
I did.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was in 6th grade, and my friend Logan, he did a presentation on a disability he has. So I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm thinking I might try that. And so I set it up after 2 months, and then I gave it in front of the whole class, and then it kind of just all worked out.
And did you
Kind
think
of.
that was helpful for your teachers?
It was very important, yeah.
And how
And go ahead.
are you going to introduce yourself this year to your teachers?
I might do it the same way, because like last time it was really cool because my teacher that I was giving, that was in the class, she also had dyslexia. And she kind of did it the same way I did it, just without a presentation. I was like, and she came up to me after class and was like, Nate, that was really cool of you to come up and say that I have dyslexia and I have never done that. So I was just like, okay, well, this is kind of cool.
So when did you start feeling comfortable?
The middle of
Sharing.
7th grade.
Middle of 7th grade.
But kind of stopped during COVID.
Yeah, so during COVID, you didn't really have to maybe advocate for yourself as much, or do you think you had to advocate more?
Probably advocate more because of online school. Because a lot of teachers, you need to kind of be able to talk to the teacher, and a lot of the time during online school, they can't really make time to just help you. They have to help other students. And
So
then other than just yourself.
How did you go about that?
I just kept on sending them emails, not trying to be annoying, but eventually they got back to me and set up a meeting, which is like, okay, we'll meet with you. Just please stop sending us emails. That was like, okay. So we did that, and then they kind of understood that I had dyslexia and a lot of disabilities like ADHD, and that's kind of why all of the emails were sent, because I just need the answer as soon as I send stuff. And I'm just like,
so time. I think a lot of teachers don't realize the time it takes with dyslexia, how much time it takes to do something. So if you don't get a response, that could put you way behind if you're working on a project and you don't have the time to make it up. So I think that sense of urgency, really important for students to share that with their teachers, that I really need a timely response because I'm going to be up all weekend and every single night making up what I'm missing now because I don't get what you want me to do now. Would you say that's important?
Yes, I would.
We all talk about dyslexia being a time disability. We can do it. We just need a lot of time. So is there anything else you want to share about starting the school that you think students should do?
It's different for each person. You should not just like, it's kind of different for each person to like tell the teacher that they're dyslexic. You can't just do it the same way.
Right.
It depends on the person, like what they like going about. Like sometimes what I used to do, I would send them emails, and some teachers don't check their emails. If you might know that if you don't get a reply back in like 2 weeks, by then it might be too late and that assignment might be done. So if that doesn't work, ask your friends if their teachers have gotten back to their emails, and if they have, then you know that they check them. So then you can email them, and if they don't, then just go up to them after class or something.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point. Like every student's different. Not all students are ready to introduce themselves to their teachers and do. So you kind of have to know yourself. If you need your parent to do that, or somebody in your household, you need help. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to come up with a plan, because advocacy is a learning, right? So eventually we know when we get to college, it will be all on us because our parents can't help us anymore. They can on the side, but the student has to really take over then. So just that every student's different. And sometimes one of the accommodations that we ask for is not to make the student ask for the accommodations, right? So the teacher needs to provide them because the student's not ready to know when they need them. So it's a learning process. Thanks. Thank you, Nate. And then Meg wants to go next.
Hi. My name's Meg. I got diagnosed with dyslexia in the 5th grade, and I am going into my junior year of high school, but starting my freshman year of college.
So Meg, you filled out, do you mind if I share kind of,
Not at all.
you filled out a form for us. Let's see if I can pull it up here. That is not what I want. So let me go back here. So Meg, on our website, I'm going to go here and one of my things is trying to come up. Sorry, guys. It's coming. Okay, so Meg took the time to fill out an accommodation form that we have on our website. So if you're not ready to do this yourself and you need help, this is a sheet you can fill out. It's just like our postcard. Do you want to talk through this a little bit and share what you shared, Meg?
Sure. I put my strengths, which my main strength is probably creativity. I like writing and doing art and stuff like that. But my mom convinced me to put leadership and determination, and it's hard to say no to her. Challenges are basic dyslexia ones with spelling and reading, and then I also have a visual processing disorder, so doing things that are small and require a lot of visual processing is difficult for me. Filled out a lot of the accommodations because I use a lot of different ones. I use a 504 plan instead of an IEP. But main ones, audiobooks, text-to-speech, and spell checkers, distraction-free environment, all of these little things make a huge difference in the classroom.
And so you kind of just went and highlighted and you used most of the accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so if somebody's kind of struggling with what accommodations to ask for, it's really great to be able just to maybe check the ones or have an idea. If you don't know what something is, a lot of people that flexible scheduling, when to schedule your classes, and when it's really important for some students to have their harder classes in the morning, when you say, and their easier classes in the afternoon, or vice versa. Maybe you're an afternoon person and don't, ask you to do math at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's too early for you. I'm going to stop share. But this is just, Meg just did this so you guys can all see if you need help. There's a sheet. You have a little bit different. You're starting more like college classes. So talk about how you're going to introduce yourself.
Because I'm an introvert, talking face-to-face with my teachers has always been very difficult. So what I usually do is I send them an email before the school year starts with a link to a page including all my accommodations and usually some documentation proving that I do have dyslexia. And if they do not get back to me before the start of school, I will meet with them face-to-face to talk them through it.
And then do you know who's in charge this year of kind of overseeing your plan?
I have a disability counselor who basically has given me accommodations that are college appropriate.
Okay. And you feel pretty comfortable with it?
Yeah.
Was it a little, you were saying that it was a little easier.
Yeah, they offer so many. It's like you don't have to even ask for it. They just have lists that they go through and just give you more and more.
So that was kind of nice. It was a surprise, wasn't it? Because you're used to battling for your accommodations, right? Do you want to share anything about the beginning of the school year? Do you get a little anxious? Or do you have a little, I know some kids have a little anxiety about all the new teachers and introducing themselves.
Yeah, I hate beginning school years, especially going up and talking to new teachers. So what I usually do is email, or I get a friend that I've known for a while to come up with me when approaching a teacher so that I have kind of a support system with me. Also, it often helps to bring up not a bribe, but like a bar of chocolate or something to give to your teacher to kind of make it a memorable experience for them so that they'll remember that you came up and talked through your accommodations with them, and also it'll make their day. So why not?
Yeah, so I think it's that really having that partnership with your teacher. Most teachers go into teaching to teach
Mhm.
and they like kids. So it's really important. I think that you know your strengths, even if you have to write them down. Like you said, you're not maybe comfortable talking, but you have it all in email and you do a perfect job. Anything else you want to share with the kids? Maybe some younger kids?
Don't wait to address your accommodations. If you can't just assume that your counselor is taking care of everything, you need to talk to your teacher right away. And if things aren't being met, then go talk with your counselor or get your parents to help you address the teacher.
I think that importance, like it really needs before school starts.
Mhm.
You say like it has to be. And do you have like your Learning Ally or Bookshare arranged already? Do you use one of those?
Yeah, I use both of those actually.
Okay. And do you know what books you'll be reading? Some students like to start reading before school starts.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they give me lists of my books and I read those.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's really important information. So we have Ruby.
Hi, I'm Ruby.
Hi, Ruby. I was asking for Ruby Ferguson, but we would love to hear from you.
Oh, sorry.
No, we would. Ruby, if you're willing to talk though at the end, we would love to hear from you.
Okay, I can probably talk now. My dogs are barking at cats. Hi, I'm Ruby. I go to a small private school, so some things are a little different, and it's a little bit easier for me to get all my accommodations because the teacher I have this year, I've had her for 3 years in a row, but this is my 4th year having her as a teacher, and she has dyslexia and ADHD, so it's kind of easier for me since she already knows that I can't focus very well, and that like I need extra time and like need to know like what books we're reading in advance at the beginning of the year. She'll give me a list like normally on like the first week or the second week of school of like all the books that we're gonna read and like things that I could prepare for later in the year.
So, and you brought up something like interesting at the private school, there's not necessarily a counselor or a 504 enforcer or an IEP. So you're really kind of having to work teacher to teacher for the smaller schools. So when did you start feeling comfortable sharing and talking to your teachers?
Really ever since I got diagnosed, and that was when I was like 1st or 2nd grade, I believe. And I kind of bragged about I had dyslexia because I was just me, and I would brag about random things like, oh, I got a popsicle for dinner last night. I would brag about that. So then I kind of bragged about it, but then I slowly learned it got really hard to do this work. So then I kind of just stopped with it, I guess.
So you weren't as willing to share.
No.
So would you say this year, so last year kind of was your first time really asking for things, learning what accommodations you needed?
Yeah.
And were you successful?
It kind of depended what class I was in, because like the only class I would have really trouble with for my accommodations would be my Spanish class, because my teacher didn't really understand too much about it. But then my homeroom teacher ended up joining those Zoom meetings and helping me out. So
because you were having a teacher from Spain teach Spanish right, at your school, so kind of a unique opportunity. So explaining dyslexia to somebody in Spain in a different language might be a little difficult. So you needed help. You needed an adult to help step in, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit, and you're pretty awesome about talking about the anxiety of school. How are you starting to feel as school's going to be starting?
I'm normally fine. It's more of like when there's upcoming like presentations or when we need to write down things that our parents will see, like what our goals are for the year, and then like a week later our parents will come in and we'll have to like share those. That's when I get nervous for school, and that's like the second week of school. And
So
I
the
just get
second week
nervous.
is hardest for you.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that? How do you deal with students listening? How would you deal with that?
For me, my teachers allow me to have like a little quiet fidget in my hand. Or they allow me to like stand up and walk and move around quietly in like the back corner of like the classroom while they're talking. And that just helps me focus because I can't sit still very well. And that kind of calms me down a little bit, just having like a little fidget in my hand. I can like just rub on my fingers or something, or spin really quiet. That helps me and just calms me down.
So do you have some maybe mistakes that you've made asking for accommodations that you've learned from that you can share with students, like maybe not asking in time?
I would say, yeah, definitely. Probably at my old school when I was in fourth, was it? It was fifth and sixth grade. That class. My teacher definitely did not understand the whole thing about dyslexia and ADHD. So then it was really hard to get my accommodations. But then also, like I realized like the accommodations I would end up needing, like that fifth and sixth grade was like the years that I realized I actually need these accommodations pretty quickly for my work. And I didn't ask for them until like closer to the end of the year. So then it was really hard for me, and I would be staying up over like until like 1 o'clock in the morning trying to get this piece of paper done with my mom or somebody helping me because my dad's gone at work and I just couldn't get the paper done in class.
So if you were to do it all again, what would you change about? Would you just ask sooner?
I definitely, yes, and probably have a sit down with her with like some like maybe you or something, and both of my parents, so we could explain a little bit more how I would need help.
Because that seems to work pretty well, like when you're open with the teachers and they know exactly what you need. Because sometimes they don't see the effort, right, that you're making. They
Yeah.
don't see how long things take you. So they see something finished that maybe your mom helped you with, and they think, oh, you're fine. You don't need extra time. And they don't realize that you had tears, torn papers, crying. You were up till 2 a.m, yelling, we all that homework that we go through to get things done. Is there anything else you want to share with students?
Definitely ask for your accommodations and like figure out what they are, either like the first week of school or something, and talk to your parents and your teachers all in like one time, or go to each teacher with your parent and definitely tell them how you need help and stuff, because that will definitely help you through the year.
And have you noticed it's okay like to find that some accommodations you don't need anymore and there's new ones, like it's okay to ask in the middle of the year?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to share?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay, thanks, Ruby. So Madeline Sprinkle will have her.
Hi, my name's Madeline. I graduated last year, so I'm going to be a freshman in college this year. Really nervous. I was diagnosed in the 3rd grade, and yeah.
So you have a long history to share with us. The good, the things that you've learned. So talk about introducing yourself to teachers. What did you do?
So I've struggled with that a lot. My whole entire life I've gone to a super small school, so I've always been scared of being judged or what people thought of me. And so oftentimes in like my younger years, it took me a long time to be comfortable telling teachers I needed accommodations, probably my last couple of years of high school. And all throughout that, before then, it was super hard for me. So oftentimes I would have my mom help me. My favorite way was at the beginning of the year, I created a slideshow and I would send that to each of my teachers that I was supposed to have. And oftentimes at my IEP meeting, if I knew I was going at the end of the year, if I knew I was going to have another teacher, they would come sit in so they could hear what my accommodations were and kind of learn some about me. So those are some of the things I did.
So Sherry, you think it's super important for your teachers to know? Like if you
Yeah.
had to do it again, would you have done it sooner?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely cared too much about what other people thought of me and less about my mom will be able to help me. And so that was definitely stressful for the both me and my mom. And so I feel like if I could go back, I would definitely go up and have more conversations with those teachers.
But you knew that you couldn't do it, and so you advocated with your mom to help you, right? So I think that's just as important that you knew that about yourself. You knew that that was a weakness. So you still got it done. You just maybe didn't do it yourself, right? So I mean, I think that's important for students to hear, because not every student is. A lot of students can't really they don't want to tell anybody, or it's not that they're too embarrassed, they just don't know how to share, and the words don't come out, and so it's just easier sometimes to let somebody else do it. And your video, do you want to talk about your video a little bit more?
Yeah, so basically just I like to start off with basically myself, what I'm interested in, and so talking about, my name's Madeline, I talk a lot type of thing, and some more things that I'm interested in, maybe the sports I play, and then they can kind of get to know me and feel like what type of person I am, and then put in how dyslexia affects me, and then the accommodations I use, and it was that type of thing.
So you had a slideshow right? You'd have a slideshow?
Yeah, it was a slideshow.
And then you would just change it every year a little bit?
Yeah. Especially for what technology I used, and updated pictures, obviously.
So accommodations, did you know who to go to so you struggled with getting the accommodations. Your school was not really the best about that.
No, yeah.
So what was your process of making them give you accommodations?
Yeah, it's definitely been a struggle. We would always sit in IEP meetings in the room and kind of fight for can you guys help us figure this out? And they were always said they were willing, but then when it came time to actually put that into play, they were never like, you can't have that here. And it was always a struggle, a back and forth, super hard to get them to even let me do anything. And then in IEP meetings, it would be like, well, she never even tried but that wasn't the case at all. And so it's been a real struggle with that. And kind of at the end of last year-ish, everyone had to use computers because of Corona. And so Madeline's just using an iPad, and it wasn't any different. And that's it took me a long time to do, but it wasn't like I was doing anything wrong, because everyone had their phones out, because that's how we had learned for so long, and now everyone's doing it like that. And so that was kind of a shift for my school, and it took a long time, but that's kind of when it.
So you could get your accommodations because you were in charge of them yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think so. You live way out in the middle of nowhere in a little school district. So that support group we talk about, do you know the support groups in your area? How important has that been for you?
Yeah. So I feel like there's not really necessarily you guys are my support group. So I struggled a lot whenever I was in middle school or grade school, not knowing anyone else with this. I thought I was there's something so wrong with me. No one else is like this. And then once we reached out and found the panel and you guys, it was definitely a breath of fresh air, because I thought I was alone, and then I realized I wasn't. There's other kids like that, and I was able to recognize once I found these people out in school, I kind of noticed other people were kind of maybe needed more help, and were like me too, and so that kind of opened my eyes a bit.
And then even knowing what accommodations, so you hear from schools, we can't do that accommodation. Was it nice to know yeah, you can do that accommodation because all of these other students I know have them?
Yes, definitely helpful. And finding new accommodations too, or new technology definitely helped too.
So now you're starting college. So how are you going to introduce yourself? Because it's all on you now, right? So as a college, you have to do it kind of yourself. Your parent doesn't get to come.
Yeah, so I've sent a few emails, and then I'm thinking I don't know if it's gonna be able to be possible because of Corona and half of my classes are online, but we're hoping to set up a meeting with some people. But I think I'm gonna keep doing the same slideshow thing. It's worked great in the past. Like maybe it'll work good here too. And I have the cards that says like my name and then defines the disability and then like what accommodations I use. And I think definitely for my in-person classes, I'm gonna go up to my teachers and introduce myself and give them one of those cards, just as kind of, if they don't remember everything, they'll have my information and we could be able to reach out that way.
Perfect.
Nervous.
No, I think you're ready. You're ready. You've done this. You've learned all these great things. So anything else you want to share with students starting the school year? Anything you would have done different that you know now?
It's okay to ask your mom for help. And don't be scared to advocate for yourself. It's okay if it takes a long time. Don't put yourself down because you're not advocating as well as everyone else is.
It's learned, right? It takes a while. So
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to hear from Danielle. So Danielle's going to give the teacher perspective, what she likes to hear at the beginning of a school year that would be helpful for her.
I wondered if we wanted to hear from Ruby with a IE at the end of her name first.
That would be great.
Would that be okay? And then I'll jump in right after her.
Okay.
If you'd like to, Ruby.
We would love to hear your story.
Hi. One sec. My phone almost died on me, so I'm trying to. Okay. I'm Laura's student. 2 years, right, Laura? Or almost 2.5 years I've tutored with Laura.
So how are you going to introduce yourself this year? Tell us a little bit, like your plan.
Well, my mom is very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also have ADHD and anxiety. Well, I'm working on like diagnosing if it's ADD or ADHD right now with my child psychiatrist, who actually has dyslexia but was diagnosed in college.
Oh, that's useful. Yeah, that's great.
But my mom has sent 504 plans to my school. And then my school, I'm going to Five Oaks in Bethany area, the Portland area. And they have a really good counselor there. So I met the counselor and he gave me a tour of the school. So I kind of knew what part of the school I was in so that I wasn't so lost. And I got to know my counselor a little bit more. And then actually they have a new principal now, but I'm going into 7th grade. But when I was in 5th grade, it was the last year of the previous principal before she retired, who was actually my mom. My mom grew up with her kids. So my mom knew the principal. And that kind of helped get my accommodations to all the teachers that I would have eventually. I have my 504 plan in my binder. I have like 4 copies in my binder for school. Just so that, and I've gone over them with my mom, but it's kind of hard to memorize them all.
It is hard, yeah.
So I like to have that. And then I have like little cards for subs.
So it sounds like you have a good plan. You have a good plan for starting out this year. Are you a little nervous? Everybody gets a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm a very social person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very artsy person too, and a multitasker. I'm actually doing art in my art room right now while I'm listening to this meeting, because I also take a focus medicine because I can't focus on things very well. It's just hard. It's like, by the end of the day, I can't even focus. It's like, ooh, butterfly out the window kind of thing.
So that's important, I think, for teachers to know. We talked about like the harder classes, maybe during the time when focus is better.
Yeah. I tutor with Laura from 8 to 9 in the morning.
Perfect timing.
Because I'm like up and I've had time to eat and wake up and stuff. And then I'm ready to do, no, it's 9 to 10 now. It used to be 8 to 9. Now it's 9 to 10. I think, yes.
So do you want to share
It'll be
anything?
7:45 in the morning, starting school.
Yeah.
Truly.
So you are dedicated.
Yeah,
Is there anything else, Ruby, you want to share with any of the other students?
So I help the ALC special needs kids at my school. I volunteer in their classroom during my free times in elementary school. And some of the kids in the regular classes were being mean to them. And so with the other 4 peer helpers and the teacher, we wrote a presentation. And I told the whole grade that I was dyslexic and I had a learning disability, and that most people have some sort of focus, learning, or physical disability, and we're the same as every other person. It's just that with internal disabilities like focus and attention and that's the same thing, and reading and writing, you just can't see it.
Right, that invisible disability is harder for sometimes people to understand, isn't it?
I was really scared that people would make fun of me, but I think that me coming out and defending other people while confessing to a large group of people helped it kind of show that I was like not afraid to be bullied, because I knew I would do something about it.
So really important to own it. Like our students will talk about, as soon as they're comfortable, it's kind of like no big deal anymore. It's just they have to deal with it. It's still not easy, but it's just, that time thing. It just takes time for everything.
I learned a trick. I personally like to sneak in that I'm dyslexic in a conversation. So like I'll be talking and then I'll be like, what books do you like to read? And then they'll tell me and I go, I like to read this and this. Oh, I'm also dyslexic. So that means this and this and this and this,
So that's
yeah. I'm actually very excited because I just finished a huge 15 thick book series. It's taken me a year, but I went from having trouble reading the paper at school that's like timed, and stuff, and reading word problems, to reading books that are this thick that are 15 book series long.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It feels really nice.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I should ask, is there any other student on that wants to share really quick of their plan? We have a small group. Is there anybody else? And we'll have time for some questions in a minute. Maybe if nobody else, maybe Danielle will give us, as a teacher, what she would like to hear from her students at the beginning of the year.
I enjoy hearing from my students early, in advance if possible. I think that's impressive. And so emails or slideshows or short video clips, or even just stopping by in person on the first day, or when we have registration, or that first day for new students. Sometimes it's not the first day for all the students, but I welcome any of those contacts. But here's what can be really helpful is in another week or two after that is to reach out again, either by coming up and talking to me if that's where you're comfortable, or resending that email or the slides, because after a week or two I've gotten to know you a little bit, and that information then sticks in my brain longer and more in a more impactful way than just asking, emailing me at the beginning of the year or talking to me at the beginning of the year, but I have no other frame of reference of who you are. And so a refresher contact is really great. Sometimes we'll get email after email after email from the special ed department or the counseling department on, here's all your students' 504s that are in your classes. Here's all the IEPs of students that you're in your classes. When I don't know you very well yet, it's hard to keep that information straight. If you have multiple classes, like at the high school level, or you meet every other day, so I don't see you every day and I don't get to know you in that way. So a couple weeks later, that contact again is even better. And for those of you that do like introduce yourself and reveal that you have dyslexia or a different learning difference, I so appreciate that, because for those that speak up, you all know that there are others in your classroom that don't. And as a teacher, we want to help as many students as we can. And a lot of times getting past the stigma of that people learn differently, and it's okay to talk about what you need in order for you to be the most successful. Getting past that is in large part to students like yourselves who are paving that way, making the space in the classroom safer for other students to speak up about it. So thank you. And even in doing that tonight by sharing this on video too, that people can see later. So I like to know what's hard for you, what can be helpful. I also like to know what you enjoy, what you're good at, even if it's not related at all to senior English class or intro to education class, because that also helps that information stick. And it's nice to see where you're curious and inspired. And sometimes that gives me clues as to how to help you, even if the subjects don't relate to your passion. I'm able to draw on that in a way that I hope can help you maybe be successful on a project or other materials by remembering that you like drumming or you like something else. So thanks, share all of it, struggles and strengths. And then as a dyslexia, I also work as a dyslexia tutor and screener, separate from my role as teacher in the high school. And when I'm talking to parents about dyslexia or kids about dyslexia, I usually include a couple of videos that they can watch that are 3 or 4 minutes long. The YouTube or TED Talk by Kelly Sandman Hurley, What is Dyslexia? And then the British Dyslexia Association's See Dyslexia Differently. So those 3 or 4 minute videos are helpful to share with students and parents, but then I also tell them, please send those to your teachers, because it gives them a quick entry point into what dyslexia is, or it helps you know more about maybe how to talk about it to other people.
Thanks, Danielle. So I'm going to share my screen just so you know how to join our group. So let me start this again. I'm just going to click through my slides to get to this page. Thank you. Our slogan is "You're not alone," because we think that's really, really important, that students just know that they're not by themselves. Sometimes it feels that way, but there's a lot of us. If you'd like to join our monthly meetings, you can email us. I think Danielle will put this in the chat too, at studentcouncil@orbida.org. You can go to our website and click on Student Learner and get to our group. We will be trying to meet monthly. We usually meet the second Wednesday of the month. We have a couple things going up. We have a dyslexia awareness on October 13th, where we're going to have a You're Not Alone rock painting campaign, where you paint a rock and hide it, and then somebody hopefully will find it and hashtag us. So we're inviting students from all over. You don't have to be from Oregon or Southwest Washington, since it looks like we'll be on Zoom for a while. And it's really just kind of a fun group. We have a group that is very competitive, so we're always doing some kind of art project. We don't narrow it down. You can do sculpting, painting, computer work, graphics. We always have a prize, an Amazon card. We had a bake-off. There's all kinds of things just to get creative. And if you're not into any of those things, just to come and help maybe judge who's going to win that and hear people's stories. We really believe that it's through our stories and that we share, that we learn other things, and that we might be able to help somebody too, or find out something. A lot of our students find out they have a lot of things in common. These are all the things that we have. It's also on our website. An important page that we have is our YouTube page. We have a lot of student talks. You can listen to other students talk, and there's a lot of recordings. Our Instagram page, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Jared Blank does an interview with our students. If you're interested in being one of those students that wants to be interviewed, or as a tutor, as a parent, if you have something, if you just want to share your story, we really appreciate sharing your stories. People always think they have to have an important message or something important. You really don't. We just want to hear your message, because something you say is going to affect somebody and help somebody else. And I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's anybody that has any questions for our students. Does anybody have a question?
While someone might be formulating their thoughts, I'll read a couple things in the chat. I'd like to applaud these students who shared tonight, such an inspiration. As a retired teacher, I appreciate them sharing their thoughts, experiences, and advice that will for sure help others. I applaud your courage and amazing perseverance in each of your journeys. And another comment, thank you so much for all the information each of you shared. It is really helpful to hear.
So I guess I'll just one more time, if anybody has a question or something they want to share, maybe they have something important about the back to school year, things that they think are important that teachers know. Or that parents know. I think it's really important that parents are ready also with all of their resources on how to help their child, because that can be very overwhelming, especially at the beginning of your journey. So I think that's about it. So Danielle, do you want to just close us off?
Oh, Laura had something.
Oh, Laura
Yeah,
has.
so I was trying to find my unmute so I can say something. You know, I don't know if anyone has any answers for this, but I don't know, maybe Danielle, but we're having a really difficult time getting accommodations set up. We go through this every year because we know what the accommodations are, we know what we need, but we can't get to people at the school because they're on vacation. So if parents weren't able to connect with, you know, the learning specialists or counselors or whoever they needed to at the end of the previous year, then we feel that we're in this bad spot. We're getting into the school year in September. We're already getting into October and we don't have accommodations set up. Is there some way to reach staff earlier versus later?
Well, from like a public school, at least secondary perspective, either emailing in June, you know, before like in our case, our counselors handle the 504 plans or and or special ed teachers who are with the IEPs, but many of them work a little bit longer in June than maybe the regular school year, and teachers.
Okay.
And so emailing them so that something can be flagged when they return, because if they take July off, when they come back in August, they may have this backlog of emails and they're working on student schedules maybe, and that can be really tough.
Yeah.
So that, and then, but if you do email like in August now and you're trying to get contact multiple people, you know, so CC the principal, whoever the person is that you're trying to contact directly, and then the district person who is in charge, whether that's the head of the special ed or the student services, or the one administrator that they've given the 504 you know, responsibilities to oversee that. And I would CC that person so that hopefully it you know, it triggers this emergency response rather than just, oh, I'll get to it, oh, I'll get to it. And
right, so having multiple people that you're sending it to, that sounds like a good idea.
And then a phone message as well, but I know that's, you know, that takes time.
Yeah,
I had a parent in the Sherwood district, you know, she's like, I left a message with this person, this person, this person, emailed this person, this person, this person, and hadn't heard back. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. But that's not unusual.
Right.
But usually if you have the administrator or the district level person, it usually helps a little
It
bit.
helps. Okay, yeah, that's our biggest challenge, is just, getting the ball rolling, because we're having, there's that initial contact and sitting down around a table and talking it out. And if, I'm not connecting with families until, July or August, then, it's all new. And so we're already kind of behind. Okay. I think that's good advice, though. Thank you.
Yeah, I think really important that administrator always would get things for me. And to give student, the teachers are back the week before school. And I think a week is a good enough time, especially in this urgency.
Mhm.
And as parents, when they establish an IEP and have a meeting time, it's really important maybe not to have your IEP at the very end of the year, maybe to have it in May. And then maybe have your IEP meeting the first week or the last week of September also. So sometimes if you fall through that crack, and just to realize you actually can initiate an IEP meeting at any time. I think parents don't know that, but just sometimes initiating the IEP meeting if you can't get people together, but always that district person's name, and that sense of urgency, they'll answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I will definitely keep that in mind. Thank you. That helps.
I have appreciated this so much. I'm a speech path in a small rural district, but what you were saying right there, we're basically back. We're in and out, but that week before school, everybody's back, but our SPED director's been there since the 1st of August. So, and if I know that there's a student coming that I'm case managing, she'll send an email to me right away saying this family would like to meet right at the beginning of the year. And I think I second that. I really appreciate that. Even if it's like the second week or so of September, when kids have had a chance to see they know their schedule, who they're going to have. Because with staffing, we didn't really know who was going to teach what until this week. So it's not always sure who's going to be the teacher for that class. But by the second week of September, they've gotten a chance to get to know. And I really appreciate that, especially a student I didn't know before. So yeah, please. And thank you, students. I took so many notes because I can't wait to share this with our students. And I'm hoping they'll join you, because I just talked to a young man who graduated last year, and he finally, his junior year, started advocating for himself. And it was amazing how that changed. And he is so proud of himself now with his job. He just got his own house. He's 18, but he's just so proud of himself. But it started with his advocacy. And when he led the meeting with the team and people paid attention, it was a game changer. So yay. Thank you very much.
I had a real quick question. I'm a teacher and an administrator at a small private school. And I found that sometimes I have students that they don't advocate for themselves, but I know about their dyslexia through either their parents or maybe have had them in past years. And I'm wondering what is a good way to approach them and talk to a student when they obviously are uncomfortable coming to you about it? What is a good way? So because I still want to talk to them personally about it and find out, not just, read the email, right? But like also connect with them. And so my question is, what are some ways to make that student feel more comfortable with me talking? Because, hey, you have dyslexia. So, I don't know, but what are some ways that would be helpful for me when I'm approaching a student that has not come to me about their stuff?
So I think this would be a great question if Madeline is still on, because this is her. She wouldn't tell you. And so maybe some ways.
So even though I didn't like to go up to people, the thing I did like is when someone would approach me. I didn't like to go up to someone else. So I found it really helpful if you just straight up and came to ask me, pulled me out of class, whatever, well, not necessarily pulled me out of class, at the end, be like, hey, can we have some words in the hallway? Or like go to a separate office, or maybe if that teacher, the student is comfortable with that teacher, tell them that they're going to meet with this person at this time and she's a really nice lady, and then just straight up ask them. And I don't think they know if they're emailing, if they're coming to you, if their parents coming to you, I think they know that they have this thing that they need to talk about. But finding the first step is so hard, especially for that person to come to you. But I think if you just straight up ask them, or like pull them out of this class, well, not necessarily, you know what I mean? I think that will help so much more, because it's so hard for them to even like send that email, even that something is going on.
And yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
I think too, students really appreciate like when the teacher asks them, what can I do for you? Then they know right away that that's going to be a working relationship. And then, just, I'm here to support you. And if you need anything else, let's figure out. And just knowing that you're open to that, because I think a lot of our students have been shot down a lot when they're asking for things that they're afraid to ask. But if somebody comes and asks them what they can do, just that sense of kind of relief, I think really important. But not in front of other students. A lot of our students have been outed by a teacher when they're in a class next to their student. And obviously, that does not go well.
Well, if there are no more questions or comments, we'll just bring this evening to a close. Students, thank you so much for your time. And like I said, being courageous and sharing your journey, making it easier for those who come after you. And Shelby, thank you for all the time that you put into our student empowerment panel to grow this amazing group. And for all of you attendees, we really appreciate that you came and listened, and we hope that it helps in whatever role you're listening for. And please feel free to reach out for more information and support to the International Dyslexia Association, whether that's for adults with dyslexia, for supporting students, or yourself as an educator, or any empowerment possibilities. We like to help, and that's what we're here for. And we also like to hear your stories. So info@orbida.org is an excellent email to contact us with questions, or with, hey, I heard you guys talk, I'd like to maybe tell my story a little bit on Instagram Live, and we'll be happy to set something up. So Shelby, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I was just going to call. I would really love to hear Jeanette on IG Live talk about the administrative role and the private school. That would just be a really interesting Instagram Live. If she's ever interesting, I would really love to hear that.
Well, we'll have to keep in touch then and try some. That sounds good to me too.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Be well, be safe.